Let's talk.
And we're live. Live another day, and of course, another confronting what appears to be, what do we call this happening between Dangote and the marketers? Which, of course, doesn't quite appear that you see your place in all of this. But maybe with this new development, this, I don't know, should we call it, there's a weak hope, I must admit. But there's also something in the air that suggests that if, I don't know, the Naira gains against the dollar, chances are you may buy petrol for cheaper. And yes, if you ever had the thought run through your head, a question to Jide around CNG. Because the last time he was here, I asked him a question about CNG. Well, he was very optimistic, so optimistic, he sent me a video after the show. But now that Malaysia is phasing off CNG, that's not your first question, Jide. First of all, it's good to have Jide Pratt back in the studio. Good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for being here.
Good afternoon, Joyce.
I'm glad that you're here again. I'm glad that you could give us your time and bring for us what would appear to be answers to public questions. You are in the oil and gas industry, midstream, downstream. So you're the guy to talk to. What are you guys doing to us? Because maybe, because I keep looking at you as a non-player. But maybe you're the guy we should pin down and squeeze for all the answers.
Good afternoon, Joyce. Good afternoon, listeners.
Now you kind of see that the approach is different today.
Yeah, but I think what we should do is first clarify things. And I always say this, enthusiastic about the industry, and I have been for over 2 decades.
Well, you're making money, so it's straightforward.
Money is relative. Money is relative. So, and I think the people that really make money in Nigeria, sadly, are the House of Reps and then the senators.
Okay.
So we work hard to try and make money
to
be able to pay bills, just to put it in context. A lot has been happening in the industry. And one thing that we're clear about, and one thing I try to do is just have an informed opinion, and I share that based on what I know.
Okay.
So I don't know if the first question was the CNG one or
No. Yeah, so the first question is, what's happening between marketers and Dangote? It has practically moved all over the place. We don't know exactly what to make of the background, because now we're hearing this morning that marketers have agreed to buy petrol from Dangote. So maybe we should begin from what's happening today, and then we can just find our way back.
Okay, so if we begin with what happened today, there was a statement from IPMAN. Now, IPMAN is a body of Independent Petroleum Marketers Associations of Nigeria. Now, what had happened in the past is that, and I believe sometime last week, IPMAN went on national TV and said that they were unable to buy products from the Dangote refinery. And a lot of questions came out around that. But some of us were of the view that if you can't buy, it's because you can't have a conversation. So now they've had a conversation. IPMAN as a body has over 20,000 retail outlets because they're independent petroleum marketers. So it means that Jide & Sons has 2 stations, Joyce & Sons has 2 stations. That collective body has over 20 to 30,000 stations across the country. With that kind of number, you should be able to go and sit down and negotiate a commercial position with a refinery. Okay. It's really as simple as that. That hadn't happened up till about yesterday. Now, yesterday, what has happened is that IPMAN has had a number of factions, and I'll say different factions, have come together and have come to one fact. With our numbers, we can command a commercially viable price to buy from the refinery. The refinery is simply there to go and sell products, refine petroleum products, and sell it, because that is how they make their refinery margins. Now, let me just dwell on that a bit. Every time you impute crude into a refinery, there's a cost of crude. So I'm going to use an example. If crude is $1,000, if you buy $1,000 crude, it's of no use to you as a refinery until you refine it into gas oil, gasoline, which is PMS, jet fuel, and then you sell it. If you sell and you have $1,300, what has happened is that your refinery margins, or what you call a crack spread, is $300. It's as simple as that. The input is the crude, $1,000. You've sold what you call distillates for $1,300. Your spread is $300. That is your margin. However, if you're a brand new refinery, and someone made a very incisive point on something I watched, I think his name was Mr. Femi Oladeni, and he talked about something called amortization. In accounting, the principle of owning an asset is that it's going to live a useful life. At the end of that useful life, it's of no value. So you're going to depreciate or amortize. So let's use the word amortization. It is spreading the cost of your capital, capex, over the life of the asset, more or less. So those are the finance costs that the refinery will take out.
Okay.
Interest rates, loans. So when they take out that from their 300, whatever is left is their profit.
Okay.
So
good. Wait. Now, you remember before the Dangote refinery kicked off, marketers said that they couldn't, that if Nigerians had to pay the landing cost of petrol, we would be paying more than we were paying then, whatever then meant. I guess it was certainly around the period when we were paying 5 something, 7 something. Yeah, and then they said we'll be paying more. Correct. Okay, and then the Dangote refinery started. The last time you were here, a few questions which I couldn't ask you due to time. One of them was, how is it that the same marketers who told us that if the subsidy was taken off, we would be paying more, only for Dangote now to pretty much refine crude in the country, and the same marketers are saying that if they import petrol, it would be cheaper than what Dangote is offering. So it's either whatever we were told earlier was exaggerated, so we were lied to as the public, or now there's a political play behind the veil of which we're unaware of, which may be forcing its way out through the curtains to reveal itself. Because the marketers, I think it was NMPC or the marketers who claimed that Dangote was selling at a set price, and then Dangote came out to say that's false. So exactly what is happening? Because it's as though we want to cling to one story, but just before we're able to get a grip on it, it slips through our fingers and then something else emerges.
Okay, so when it comes to pricing, and I'm not going to lay
and when it comes to lying, because, you know...
I'm not going to lay credence to whether they were lying or not.
Okay.
Let me go this way. When it comes to pricing, there are moving parts. So if you do a pricing 90 days ago, there are 2 key things we must look at. What was the gasoline quote at that day? So if it was 700, and just follow me, if it was 700 at that time, I added all my import duties, I added my freight, I added my logistics, finance, and I got to 750. It means that once I do my division to be able to find out what it is as a cent per liter, I am going to multiply by an exchange rate. So if I multiply by an exchange rate, it means that at that point in time, 90 days ago, it goes to say if the exchange rate was 1,000 then it meant that whatever price you got was at 90 days ago. That's the first thing we're saying. 45 days after that, if 2 things change, back to what we talked about as in the gasoline index, it's just like saying crude oil increases. If the price of crude oil increases, gasoline index prices are going to go up. If the exchange rate moves from 1,000 to 1,400, then what it means is that 45 days after, the position has changed. Now, go back to what we said. Doesn't mean the person that was saying it at 90 days was lying. But if those indices have changed, crude oil price, the gasoline pricing index, and the exchange rate, if they go higher in 45 days, the price will be more. If they go lower, then the price will be less.
So
it means that whoever made that position, and let's put it back into context, as at the time when they did their calculations to do a landed price, they might have been cheaper. Remember we talked about amortization on the Dangote refinery? It's a brand new refinery. There's a cost of credit. What do you call it? There's interest cost.
there's cost of money.
There's cost of money. So if they add all that, they could be. But the question is this, and this is what I always say. If the difference is 495, therefore, those are the things we should be hung on about, because there is a 21-day import timeline, or 14 to 21 day, I would say, if you're bringing in product from Europe. If you're bringing it from the Dangote refinery, it's 2 days.
Which would make it cheaper, right?
Which will make it easier to get to the market. Cheaper, go back to what we said, Joyce, and I need you to follow me. It's cheaper if the landing cost is cheaper based on foreign exchange and the cost of crude. Those are the 2 things that make it cheaper. The Dangote refinery gives you only one thing, a freight advantage. So if I went to take a vessel today and I went to Europe to go and get a product, if I went to the Dangote refinery, there's something called a time charter. And I'll go back to Uber. If you took a cab from point A to point B, you have a fare you're going to pay. In oil and gas, there's a time charter, which is a 10-day charter window. So it means that I take a vessel for 10 days, go to Europe, bring in my vessel, and discharge at the refinery. But that whole process takes me 14 to 21 days. If I did it from the Dangote refinery, what it means is that if I took a time charter for 10 days, I can use that vessel 5 times
before
in that 10 days. So that's a freight advantage that the Dangote refinery will give.
Which should impact on
that
cost.
Will impact price, yes, by about 15 to 20%, yes.
We can't quite see it.
At the moment, back to what we said. 2 things. Foreign exchange.
Okay. And then the crude cost.
Absolutely.
So now we hear that the cost of crude is down.
Correct.
Which now informs what we hear today, that landing cost is $971.
Yes, thereabouts.
Okay, so this means, so practically all other factors considered, including this freight benefit or freight advantage, which we get with the Dangote refinery, has brought final cost of petrol to $971.
Thereabout.
Okay, now it doesn't appear stable. Now, I think what I'm really trying to sketch out here is because of how unfit the Naira is against the dollar, my concern is that as the Naira loses/gains against the dollar, that would impact the cost of petrol. And then we don't know for how long this fall in crude prices will be for. And so it sounds as though before the show is over today, I may be needing you back on the show next week to come talk about how we have gone from 971 to 1,250 Naira or something like that. So there's no security.
There should be. So let me interject and say this. Remember when the president said that crude oil was going to be sold to the Dangote refinery in Naira? He actually said at a fixed rate. So if you read that statement, it said at a fixed rate. So ideally, that gave some sort of security or predictability.
Yeah.
But the CBN hasn't come out to say how much that exchange rate was. Because when the president said that, it meant that if crude oil was $70, the agreed exchange rate was supposed to be public or supposed to be published, so that if you calculate, they know for as long as we're receiving this crude, if it is 90 days, if it is 1 year, this is the exchange rate. So that exchange rate was supposed to be pegged. If that was done, then you're right. We would have had some form of, and I think the word is predictability over some period of time. I don't know why it wasn't published. But if that happens, then you should see where PMS is for a long period. The crude oil market seems stable now. There seems to be an oversupply. OPEC hasn't increased their production quotas. So they've kept basically what it was. So that's some form of stability. The exchange rate for us locally is still the major issue. If it hasn't been pegged, and if you say, for instance, it's 1.6 for this purpose of this transaction, then nothing should change on the exchange rate. That gives us some predictability. Why it's not being published, I still
Okay, so
understand.
we have established one fundamental problem here, which doesn't quite guarantee that this conversation will self-sustain the information that the public requires for another 1 month without me needing your presence back here to try save face of the government. All right, now the next question that I have for you. Dangote has been accused of trying to target monopolization and knock out competitors. And I must admit to you that quite a number of Nigerians are persuaded by that view. Can you admit to some extent that that's true?
I wouldn't admit that. In fact, I think it's untrue. 2 things. If you build a $20 billion refinery, you're not a charity. That's number 1. So what it is that the Boa refinery is still coming on stream. There are about 7 or 8 modular refineries in Nigeria that are functioning. Now, those modular refineries might not be able to crack petrol, but they do crack up to gas oil. So that number 1 is out of the window because it means that it's not a monopoly. The second thing is this, and I always ask when I hear this. The NNPC imported petrol into the country for about 8 or 9 years. They were the sole importer. Wasn't that a monopoly? Where were all these marketers then, or was it then national security? My point is this. If you build a refinery for $20 billion, it's an investment that you need to reap your benefits at. I
Okay.
don't believe he's a monopoly. I do not.
But
believe.
he took them to court, asking the court to withdraw a few of them to court, asking the court to withdraw licenses. That almost suggests some attempt at monopolizing the market.
Personally, in my opinion, it was an arrogant move because
On
the point,
his part.
in my opinion.
Yeah.
Now the point is this: as long as he haven't gotten to 650,000 barrel capacity as a refinery, that means there's a delta. That means there's a difference between what you produce and what the country needs. And there's nowhere in the world, if you're not 100% capacity optimization, then people should be able to import.
But
Now,
he
it goes
hasn't-
back to the regulator to be able to put a foot down and say that, as at today, our use is 50 million, for instance. The refinery is giving us 32 million. We're going to give out import licenses for the 18 million a day. It's really as simple as that. That's down to it. So taking them to court, for me, in my opinion, I guess the law will take its course, but I didn't think it was a necessary move to make, in my opinion.
He claims that he is capable of supplying the nation's needs. And some say that, well, I think it was about a day after I had a conversation with you here live on radio, that Sahara reporters reported that he had lied to the president. I'm not sure if you had heard the rumor. I'm not sure how much of that is a rumor. So basically, the story goes that he is not necessarily totally capable of fully supplying. But Dangote himself has said that he's capable of supplying the needs of the country.
So maybe
And so importers also suggest that, well, when they add price to the equation, then they have cause to import.
go back to what I just said. So if you start a refinery, the capacity of the Dangote refinery is a 650,000 barrel a day capacity refinery. They're not there yet. And like I said, when you start up a refinery, you have to ramp up production. If I had to take a calculated guess, I would say there are 350,000 barrels a day. This will be my calculated guess. What that means is that if you are 350, you're not yet at 650. So it means that while you say you can, technically you can't, unless we have missed what our national consumption average is daily. So I think that as it is now, let's say he's at 60%. Let's even say he's at 60%. Then the NMDBRA still has the right by law to go ahead and give out import licenses for the balance 40%.
The gaps.
Yes.
For it to
and
be
just
fair.
to make sure that whatever is coming in terms of standard quality meets specifications.
We're really focused on petrol and petrol production and supply. And I think it has only recently occurred to me that the other derivatives of petrol have really been out of focus. And I know that, well, I know that speaks directly to the profit of the Dangote business, but I'm wondering whether, even as a nation, there isn't something that the Nigerian government can do by itself, for itself, in order to benefit broad scale on derivatives. Because now, the last time you were here, you said something about the NMPC's capacity, and many callers have said, why isn't the Nigerian government building a refinery? They're still of the view that the more refineries will have, the possibility of buying petrol at a lower cost. So now, it's not just petrol that you can make a profit off of. You can make gains off the derivatives. So what do you know is in that regard? Why is there this deliberate reluctance on the part of the government to support other new refineries, or build new refineries, or support modular refineries, the ones that already exist, in order for the economy to benefit? Now, this is going to lead me to my next question, but I want you to speak on this first. Now, my next question is, who are the invisible hands that is informing the force that drives petrol in Nigeria? Because I'm persuaded by the view that there are people who want Nigeria the way Nigeria is, slightly capable, but fundamentally incapable of her own development, just so that they call the shots from whatever shadows they stand. So pardon the long question. You have to take it in parts as you get it.
Let's take the first question, and you're so right. Every time crude oil is refined, there's so many distillates that come out of it. So if we move to things like gas oil, that's AGO. If we move to jet fuel, that's aviation fuel. Now, you also have chemicals that come out of the road, and you hear things like polyethylene. Those are things that come out of it. Gas, LPG, that comes out of it. Fuel oils, Some of them they used to bunker vessels. They used to feed fuels into ocean-going vessels. So you have low pour fuel oil, high pour fuel oil. There's so many derivatives, and each one of them is sold for a profit. However, this is the point, and let's go back to the beginning. Because those two, or shall I say, all of the products have been deregulated for a long period of time. They're strictly in the commercial space. So they haven't drawn as much attention over the period of time because there were no regulations in terms of you can't peg the price or you must peg the price at X or Y. No, it was a willing buyer, willing seller kind of argument.
Market. Okay.
And that's how it's been. So it's been out of public focus for a while. That's why PMS has been the issue. But you find out that refineries that work, and if we go back to what we talked about, the modular refineries, most of these modular refineries actually sell gas oil. So they sell AGO. But what you found out is that it's become some form of, let me use the word regional sell. So if I have a refinery around a certain location in Delta, you find out that I feed the market within Delta.
In that locality.
In that locality. Because, I mean, it's coming out of the refinery. I'm trucking it, and that's what it is. Some of it goes as export. So you have some people who are trucking what you call fuel oil. Fuel oil comes out of the modular refineries. Well, because they're used, let's say, outside Nigeria in some instance, and that's the commercial viability for dollar sales for them, they export those.
Oh.
Yes, and I mean, like I said, it's not a regulated market, so there hasn't been any much emphasis. The question would be, who is spinning the wheel? I don't know if the word is spinning the wheel, but I think a few things we have learned is that the NNPC as an entity needs to focus on upstream. Let them focus on how we get crude out of the ground, increase the capacity of what we get, so that all the modular refineries and the Dangote refinery can get crude stock. That's one. We're sitting on so much gas, but there's no infrastructure to take out the gas. And because the country's revenue hasn't been good for a long period of time. So what they need to do is focus on how, as the NNPC, they let go of some of their equity. And at the same time, bring in investment on a commercially viable model. Long term, if you notice during the World Cup in Qatar, they were able to sign 2 or 3 different contracts with 2 different countries for 20-year LNG project. This is what the NNPC needs to focus on. They've not been able to do well downstream. Are they the hand? I don't know if that is the word. But I always believe where there's chaos, there's gain. If you haven't managed something well for so long, take a back seat and let someone else do it. If the refinery works, okay.
I wasn't even trying to interrupt you as much as I wanted to say you have landed on a landmine, and I'm glad you brought yourself there. First, we're off on a break.
Okay.
And then we come back. Shell, Elf, them guys who came here, who are probably still here, who have left, but who may be there. On paper, they have left, but they're greeting us from there with a straw and taking blood from our veins. Because you must wonder how, with every inch of resource that we have, we're this way. So it's almost a political question, but you must have thought about it. So when we come back, you're on the hot seat. Lagos will be right back. Don't go anywhere.
99.3 Nigeria Info will be right back.
Apostle Paul declared,
I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. 2 Timothy 4:7.
now it's your time. Will you rise to the challenge?
Come and answer God's call at the Redeemed Christian Church of God 2024 Holy Ghost Congress. Tagged Onward Christian Soldiers from December 9th to 14th, 2024.
Venue kilometer 46 Lagos Ibadan Expressway. Time 6 p.m. daily.
Pastor E.A. Adeboye and other anointed men of God will be ministering.
Don't miss your chance to get battle ready.
Lagos, get ready for a powerful year-end edition of The Round Table. This is where Nigeria's biggest radio voices, your favorite top OAPs on Nigeria Info FM, come together to dissect the most impactful stories of 2024.
The cost of electricity is going to make Nigerians more sick.
As much as the governor is saying that this is all about resource control.
You see, this public statement, of course, reflects the Nigerian mentality.
And so here we have a Nigeria where one day you speak about fuel price, the next day you must consider diesel.
Most of these governors are just there. They have no idea.
From seismic economic shifts to explosive social movements, nothing is off the table.
For 4 or 5 weeks, it was one bad story or the other.
You're beginning to wonder what's happening with government agencies. Who is ensuring that the individuals...
Why would the minister walk out of you? The state minister will resume to the same office the following day.
Join us for an intense conversation, bold insights, and moments that define this unforgettable year. The Round Table, Monday, November 25th at 9 a.m. It's the ultimate gathering of Nigeria's most influential voices, all bringing their sharpest takes on stories that matter. The Round Table. Don't miss this dramatic wrap-up on Nigeria Info FM, where 2024's biggest stories come to life. The Round Table. Let's talk.
99.3 Nigeria Info, your number one station for talk. Let's talk.
Lagos, we're back. Our guest this afternoon is Jide Pratt. You must, at this point, be familiar quite well with the name and then, of course, his opinion in the oil and gas sector. He's an analyst, midstream, downstream, and I have about 2.5 minutes before the top of the hour where we have to bring to you the news update, so let's make use of time. Before the break today, I put you on the spot. You have 2 minutes to run through that as fast as you can. On the other side of the hour, you would have an opportunity to, I don't know, help us comprehend these hands. There are hands. The question is, who?
Okay, so just before we left, you were talking about the IOCs.
Yeah.
So those are the international oil companies. Mm-hmm. You've got Shell, you've got Chevron, you've got Exxon, Elf, Total, whoever it is. Mm-hmm. So what do? You find out that when they come to Nigeria, they come with funding and they come with technical know-how to drill.
And political advantage.
Well, let's take it step by step. They come with technical know-how to drill. Based on that, they approach the government, and then government awards them a drilling license, OML or whatever it is.
Okay.
It's done under what you call a joint venture. Why is it JV? We own the oil. The Nigerian government owns the oil. NNPC owns the oil. But because someone is bringing in money to come and invest, then you have a JV, which is a joint venture, which means sometimes 60-40, sometimes 59, depending on the rate. But you find out that the government takes the larger share. They now have what you call cash calls. So it means that for every time we've drilled, we brought out X amount of barrels of crude oil. This is the net position after operations, and we're supposed to split it. If you need to top up, then you need to pay me a certain amount of money because I have over-invested, quote and unquote, in terms of trying to get the oil out of the ground. For a long period of time, those cash calls were always delayed. So it was like you shared the oil. This is your portion. This is my portion. And then sadly, you're not paying me what is due me. So they've had the advantages. And you see some of them seem to be leaving major upstream. And they're going into what you call, or shall I say, they're leaving shallow waters and going into main upstream. And that's because they found out maybe community issues, maybe the yield has reduced, maybe they just can't hack it anymore in terms of the issues that are going on there.
Okay.
So I think that's some perspective.
So that's one. We're going to go off on a break, Lagos. We need to bring to you the news update. If you have any questions, this is a good time to send it in. On the other side of the hour, the conversation continues with Jide with us here on Nigeria Info Live with 99.3 Nigeria Info FM.
Information at its peak. This is 99.3 Nigeria Info. I'm listening.
It's 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock.
The news update on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
The federal government is planning a single-digit tax regime to reduce the burden of multiple taxation on Nigerians. The chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal and Tax Reforms, Taiwo Yodele, said there is the need to cut down all taxes to single digits when the ongoing reforms are concluded. A single-digit tax system allows less than 10 taxes to be paid by citizens or businesses within a period of time. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu held talks with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud, on Monday. The talks between both leaders took place on the sidelines of the extraordinary Arab Islamic Summit in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. And we hear that an explosion shook the city of Jos on Tuesday morning, sending shockwaves through surrounding communities. The blast occurred around 10:30 a.m. near the densely populated Terminus Market area. Initial reports indicate that several people were injured in the blast, with some sources suggesting there may even be more casualties. The extent of the damage remains unclear, but witnesses describe scenes of destruction and chaos. Emergency services, including the police, the fire department, and ambulance teams, reportedly rushed to the scene to provide assistance. Meanwhile, in Anambra State, the State Fire Service has issued a warning to residents to be more safety conscious during this Hamilton period to prevent fire disasters. The Fire Service of Anambra State, the Chief of Fire Service, Anambra Command, Chukwudi Chiketa, said that fire disasters were common in the state during the Hamilton period. To mitigate the risk of fire outbreaks, Chiketa advised residents to switch off electrical appliances when not in use to prevent electrical fires. And reports from the Middle East show that the death toll since dawn across Gaza has risen to 25 after an Israeli airstrike targeted an overcrowded area in Deir el-Balah city, killing at least 6 people. The health ministry says that at least 1 person died and 4 were wounded in an Israeli airstrike in Hamel, a town in eastern Lebanon's Baalbek Hamel. New Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz ruled out a ceasefire with Lebanon's Hezbollah and hinted at a strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. In Lebanon, at least 3,243 people have been killed and 14,134 others injured in Israeli attacks since the war in Gaza began. Lagos, that's the news update. You are listening to The Sunny Side with Joyce on 99.3 Nigeria Info. And I am Yvonne Ohaifo. Stay here.
What's that station again?
Oh yeah, Jamo, come
No.
Here's one thing you need to know about yourself. So like here we dey talk.
Yep, bullseye.
You're listening to 99.3 Nigeria Info's The Sunny Side. The Sunny Side. Welcome. My name's Joyce.
We're back. 99.3 Nigeria Info. You are on the sunny side. Yes, I guess so. That's 4 minutes past 1 p.m. Okay, so Jide, you had tried to explain to us how the IOC sketchily works. Why isn't Nigeria able to drill her own oil? Because sometimes you'd say, well, you're going to business, you don't have capital initially. People come in, you have a joint venture, and then it happens for a while. Then you find your own footing, and then you drill your own oil and sell to whom you will. That hasn't evolved. We're still in that situation where now, my next question, 2023, the NMPC announced it had secured a $3.3 billion emergency crude oil repayment loan from the African Export-Import Bank. Now, I don't know to what extent, but we have a sense as Nigerians that the government, in their pursuit of looking for money, may have extended as collateral or future payment crude oil. So it doesn't quite say that we're going to be free of this dependency anytime soon. So in your expert analysis or expert view, what would you say is happening? What do we need to understand about advantages or disadvantages of some of these things I've just highlighted?
Okay, so 2 things. Let's start from the beginning. When the government decides to bring in an IOC, it's from a funding point of view. The first thing is that, okay, we don't have as much funds as we want or as much funds as we need. So why don't we bring in someone who's got the technical capacity and has funding? And then we take our funding into other things. That's how the joint came about.
Okay.
And in fairness, the truth of the matter is that if someone is bringing in and has the technical capacity, then why not? Now, what the issues might be as it concerns Nigerian is that if I take 60%, then the question is this: how much of the 60% from my joint venture goes into infrastructure, goes into feeding, goes into agriculture, or how much of it goes into running government as a cost of governance? If you don't balance that, then what you find out is that two things will go wrong. You don't have enough because you're not drilling enough. If you're not drilling enough because your cash calls, you've been faltering on cash calls, it means that the confidence to bring in a new joint venture partner is low. So what we should do ideally is that bring in more joint venture partners. And like I said, NNPC needs to free up some of what she owns in terms of ownership, in terms of equity, so that more capital comes in. If more capital comes in, and one of the things we achieve is better crude oil lifting productions, we're still on about 1.4, 1.5. Ideally, 2 million, 2.2 is where we should be at. If we're there, then what it means is that the effect on revenues from those JVs, more money comes into the economy. If more money comes into the economy, then it means that our debts can be reduced. If we're less profligate in terms of government expenditure, that alone, and then maybe feed into the states, because if you get more in terms of allocations, what do you do with the more you get in terms of allocation? So the JV model for me works. Extracting what is due is a different kettle of fish, but that should be the approach going forward. So I think that answers the JV question.
Okay.
You had a second question to follow that?
This one where, the NMPC announces that it had secured
So,
$3.3 billion.
So what they had done at that point in time is that they used what you call an SPV, special purpose vehicle. And what they did is that they took crude oil that we hadn't gotten this crude oil yet, but pledged it to say that, give me this 3.5 billion affecting. I want to use it to kind of stabilize imports at the case maybe. And that was at that time. Don't forget now, the NNPC is saying that she's no longer importing.
Okay.
So what it means is that at that time, what they wanted was some form of pledge to say, and I can't remember now. That was the Project Gazelle, if my memory sounds. I can't remember top of my head.
Okay.
But what it was is that they took a certain amount on a day-to-day basis and pledged it as crude oil to securitize that loan with the Afrexim Bank.
Okay.
I don't know where they had that now.
Then one of the reasons that they gave for this particular deal was to stabilize Nigeria's exchange rate. Exactly. Well, here we are. Certainly, it didn't quite work out.
It obviously didn't pan out. I mean, and these are the issues. Go back to what we said about government spending. If you pledge a certain amount and think that, look, I'm going to turn this curve in 19 months, you have to be physically disciplined in terms of fiscal. If you're not, then what it is that time will fly past. And because you're going further into debt, production is reducing, then it's a harder hill to climb. So it didn't pan out the way it should have.
And then we have to repay this.
Of course. I mean,
how? I know you're not a politician or a government official, but what's your?
They're going to take a loan. So if you take one loan and you can't pay one loan,
you take another loan to pay that loan. Oh, here we are.
Fiscal discipline.
Okay. Now, if we go back to the Dangote story, the Dangote and marketers, when you analyze the back and forth, the relationship between the Dangote and the Nigerian marketers, they appear now to be in a very good place because now they say that they have agreed. They will now marketers are saying they will now take a petrol from Dangote. We are waiting for an announcement that should take prices down because they're saying that the landing cost is about $971. Do you expect a reduction in final price for consumers?
What I do expect from Ipman is to be able to go in and negotiate a price that is lower than what we have currently now. Why? Because of their numbers.
And it's visible because you can see from every indicator.
I mean, it's visible, yes. Okay. So what you could do is that, and like I said, every refinery takes a position and decides that, okay, I'm going to dim my margin expectations now because of this volume. So if that happens, then maybe what they'll get is what you call in the industry a volume discount, which ideally should impact on the pump prices. But if I get a volume discount, let's not forget this is a commercial transaction. What happens if I get a volume discount and decide to increase my margins as Ipman? I mean, I could do that. I'm not saying they would do that. But that's the point. So if they have a commercially viable price, there's some form of security that has come into this transaction.
Yeah.
And it's important that we say that. The only reason why these negotiations have gone according to plan, Dangote is not selling on credit. So either means that a bank has stood in the gap now to that transaction and they will money profit. Because ideally, when men get to retail. Oh. Yes, so if I put down $1 million, give it $5 million. But now sell pop send back into the 90 miles. That's how it happened. Good move in the right direction, in my opinion.
Okay, but then again, we're still waiting for the actual benefit to the people, which should be a reduction in the cost of
It should be,
price.
but you see, for the people, this is what it is. Every time you drive around, and I don't think Nigerians have ever gotten to a stage where we are now, where people all look at the totem. The totem is the display that you see at retail outlets. Before, people just drove into retail outlets.
Yeah.
They never looked at what price it was.
Yeah.
So the point is that don't wait for an announcement. If you begin to go around IPMAN members, you would begin to see price changes. Nobody's regulating the price anymore. So the question is this. If you saw prices at 960 somewhere and 980 somewhere, by affliction, just go to where it's at 960. Because you will begin to see these things. You will no longer see an announcement to say prices have become... You just hear someone on video social media, I bought at 660 today. I bought at social and social station. Right. There will not be an official announcement. And I don't know if that's what IPMAN wants to do.
Yeah, but
they're a body, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but I really think that they should, given everything else. I mean, they have dragged not only our pockets, but they've dragged our sentiment, our psychology. They're dragging our destinies. Because, yeah, look, you think about it. How much were you buying petrol, full tank? I see your car. You drive a fancy little thing.
I have no idea what you're talking
Good.
about.
And so, how much do you fill your tank for? That's a V6. Or is it a V8?
No, it's actually a V6.
Good. Now, I've driven a V6. It pleases me to tell you that you must really have money for petrol to be pushing a V6 at 1,000 plus in Naira.
No, you might be. Now, the point is this.
You don't go anywhere?
Maybe I just don't fill my tanks. But jokes aside, this is the point that has happened. You found out that every time petroleum prices moved from when we started from 165 to where we are now, 1,100, it meant that if you bought 10 liters then, yes, at 165, if you bought 10 liters, you were actually buying at 1,650. That's what it was at 10 liters then. Okay. Now, if you're now buying petrol at 1,100, then it means the same 10 liters is now 11,000 liters. Is now 11,000 naira. That's just the reality. So I'll go over that again.
Yeah.
165 naira per liter times 10 liters is 1,650 naira.
Yeah.
Now we're buying at 1,100, right? For the same 10 liters, it means you're spending 11,000 naira.
Exactly. Yeah.
Go back to what we said earlier. What has gotten us to this point? If the exchange rate when it was 165 naira was the same as now, we won't be having this conversation.
True. Because
crude oil prices, no matter how we look at it, in the last 15 years have not
stable.
Undulated to a point where we're talking about 50% differentials. No, it's the exchange rate.
Yeah.
It's the
so this is once again a fiscal policy issue.
Fiscal,
monetary policy
yes,
concern.
but you see, if the two do not work like hand in glove, this problem is not going away. Wow. And it means that if we don't tweak the economy, so look at the Dangote refinery, and a lot of people have said marketers are not buying. My opinion is this: if the marketers locally don't want to buy, so be it. He should export. If he exports, then there's more foreign exchange for the refinery and more foreign exchange for the country.
But then it doesn't benefit. So I hear that Vitol, BP, and another company lift diesel out of the Dangote. They pretty much just take about 60% of what he produces.
Yeah.
And is it also is it as a result of this rift between marketers, Dangote, or the Nigerian market? I don't know. Why?
So this is what it is. Every time a refinery, and let's get this clear, the job of a refinery is to crack crude into distillates, and then sell
to whoever is buying.
Because what the refinery does not want is what you call a top of tank.
Yeah, well, that's something Dangote was talking about.
So if I produce into a tank, and let's say my tank can take 50, the day I get to 45, I must be very, very apprehensive that I need to empty this 45 to bring in another 45.
Okay, yeah.
Now, if that is what it is, then it's different from a depot. A depot's job is to take product off a vessel and store. Once they store, they will sell and then plan when the next vessel is coming for a top-up. But they're not scared of a production on a day-to-day basis that leads to a tank overflow. They're not. So the Dangote refinery has to be extremely clear, and that's what they're doing.
Okay.
If I get to a certain level, I need to sell out to be able to refine more to put into this tank. So exports, Vitol is extremely clear. I need to supply sub-Saharan Africa. I'll go to the closest port. BP is extremely clear. They don't have any hang-ups about it. Ghana, Kenya, South Africa. These are countries in sub-Saharan Africa that are looking at Dangote refinery as a point to go and load from. So yes, he has to balance Nigeria, but that's sentiment. He has to make a profit. That's what is critical. The job of how the pains of the Nigerian people reduce is not a Dangote job.
Yeah.
It's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That's his bit.
How true is it that, Dangote's costing is a lot higher than what it would take for marketers to bring it from overseas?
I'm not so sure when you say costing is higher.
Well, so the marketers accuse Dangote of selling at a price which they deem to be expensive in comparison to what the marketers would have paid if they had to bring the petrol from overseas.
I don't think so. All the numbers I've looked at, the numbers we were talking about in terms of what Dangote was selling, what landing price were 4 or 5 naira off. Those were the differentials. So it wasn't anything major. And I think it's very important we keep on saying this. A new refinery has a capex cost. It has to amortize.
Yeah.
A refinery that is 20 or 30 years old in Europe is not carrying much amortization anymore because that refinery has lasted 2 or 3 decades. There's nothing to amortize. A new refinery has capex.
Yeah.
So if that 20 billion has not been paid on one hand in terms of the interest charge, there's also a depreciation. They must provide for depreciation and amortize over the life of that asset.
You seem to be suggesting that as much as we want to hold Dangote to some level of accountability, he's doing what the average businessman would do for his sustenance in business. And as such, what Nigerians are required to pay, what they would have to pay if a Dangote is the one refining. Would it be a different conversation if it was the government refining?
So if it's clear, if it was the government refinery, what the government had been doing was the subsidies over the period of time. So I believe if any of those 3 refineries were working, there might have still been some form of subsidy. I'm not so sure if totally 100% would have been gone. But my point is that if it's a commercial entity, he's not bound by the rules of being altruistic.
Yeah.
That's the reality. So what I think he's done, and let's be extremely clear, there were options of putting this refinery somewhere else. Dangote, as a personal individual, is the only one that seems to have most of his businesses in Nigeria. And, it has to count for something. Of course, maybe it's the fact that he's also benefited from this. But then you don't take business to where you don't benefit from. But we also saw this was something that could have been scuttled by the same Nigeria where he's put his 20 billion investment. I mean, I don't work for him and I don't speak for him, but let's put it in perspective. If any of those refineries were working, Kaduna, Port Harcourt, or Warri, then would have had a basis to compare. Sadly, with the modular refineries, we don't. Because most of them do not have a catalytic cracker to be able to convert crude oil into PMS. They can into gas oil, which is what they're doing. But it would have been interesting if they did. But don't forget, there's still much smaller refineries. So the Bua refinery might be the next thing to wait for.
Do you have any idea as to why there's no refinery in Warri? To be honest with you, I'm particularly surprised because of course, the geography of the oil location and how, in my head, I really have no comprehension as to how the sector works. But I'm thinking if you have, it's like Ajaokuta steel and the coal. Yeah. So I'm thinking, based where if you find the resource there, then the refining of that product should be situated just about around the same place where you have the resource. So what's the obstacle in Warri? Like, do you have any idea?
So don't forget there was a Warri refinery.
And?
The NNPC Warri refinery.
Okay.
It's moribund.
Why?
Obviously, turnaround maintenance, you see, anything that is mechanical means that at a certain time, it's run a certain number of hours. You must prime it. You must tune it. You must do what you call service check. What has happened for the Warri refinery over time is that wasn't happening as and when due. So assume your car is bad and it gives you just an inkling of a problem. You've got 2 options. Fix the inkling of that problem immediately or wait for it to get to something worse. What now made it worse was that monies that were voted for the turnaround refineries of the Warri refinery, nothing has come out of it. We're still hearing that Port Harcourt will still come on stream, Kaduna will still come on stream. The Warri refinery is not yet on stream. I don't know when it's going to come on stream. So you have some refineries that are modular.
Okay.
Not in Warri, but in that axis is Niger Delta Refinery. There are few around that area, but they are modular refineries. So they did go to the source, like you rightly said. But, I mean, they're small compared to the Warri refinery.
So is the intent of BUA pretty much the same as Dangote, and this time it would be situated in Nigeria?
Yes, in Nigeria. I think the BUA refinery, if my memory serves me, is either in Bayelsa or Cross River. I can't remember top of my head.
Any hopes that this may give us some costing advantage?
Costing advantage for refineries will always be freight. So, yes, it will give us a freight advantage. In terms of actual cost, if we still do not get our foreign exchange rates right, we still have a problem. But it's good it comes on. Competition, and I believe it's 225,000 barrel capacity refinery.
Oh, that's bigger.
No, that's smaller. The Dangote refinery is 650, largest single train in the world. It's smaller. So it's bigger than what we have in terms of Warri, in terms of what we have in Port Harcourt, Kaduna. But I mean, it's scaled down, and wisdom on his side, if you ask me. I don't know in hindsight if I could pick Aliko Dangote's brain why he actually went for something so big, but there must have been something he saw. But clearly, the BUA refinery has also seen, and you know, that's the irony. When you're a front runner, people learn from you for good and bad.
True.
So they've seen some of the obstacles the Aliko Dangote refinery faced as a 650 single train. I don't think BUA is going to go that way. So BUA is going for something smaller. But practical as well.
Look, every time I speak with you, I am persuaded by your judgment. I just think we don't have time and patience for the politics, really. We truly don't. And I would hate to keep you here any longer. The telephone lines are ringing. People have questions for you. Now, some people are practically presenting arguments, contrary arguments, some of the things that you have said. And I think we should just share one. Do you absolutely agree to your guest that the IOCs are always in connivance with the executive government officials and some other players in the oil industry to rob Nigerians off of what is due them as their patrimony? I
mean, that statement, I'm not going to say I'm going to agree with it, but you see, this is what I'd say. The political elite or the political class should protect Nigeria. If the IOCs take advantage of the political class who should protect Nigeria, then I'm sorry, I still can't blame the IOCs. I'm going to blame the politicians. I'm going to blame the executive who decided to sell the country out. Maybe for one or two.
A possibility of transparency. He says, what do you suggest should be done to entrench transparency in the oil industry, as is the case with Saudi Aramco?
So I think it's very, very easy. We have to go full privatization when it comes to the state-owned run oil company. And this is what I always say, that they need to let some of their own shares go, bring in private people to not just invest, but also run it. He makes a very good point with Saudi Aramco. Saudi Aramco is government run, but yet they run under high corporate governance standards. If you also go further and look at the Nigerian LNG, I cannot talk about them enough. Nigerian LNG is a private company run, even though it was government started. They give a profit every year. So we've got so many examples, but ready, and politics.
Lakers, we're going to quickly go off on a break. When we come back, I can take two more questions if you have them I can see more than two already. We'll be right back for Jide Pratt on Nigeria Info's The Sunny Side. Don't go anywhere.
You are listening to your number one station for talk.
99.3 Nigeria Info.
99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
Lagos, get ready for a powerful year-end edition of The Round Table. This is where Nigeria's biggest radio voices, your favorite top OAPs on Nigeria Info FM, come together to dissect the most impactful stories of 2024.
The cost of electricity is going to make Nigerians more sick.
As much as the governor is saying that this is all about resource control.
You see, this public statement, of course, reflects the Nigerian mentality.
And so here we have a Nigeria where one day you speak about fuel prices, The next day, you must consider diesel.
Most of these governors are just there. They have no idea.
From seismic economic shifts to explosive social movements, nothing is off the table.
For 5 weeks, it was one bad story or the other.
You're beginning to wonder what's happening with government agencies. Who is ensuring that the individuals...
Why will the minister walk out of you? The same minister will resume to the same office the following day.
Join us for an intense conversation, bold insights, and moments that define this unforgettable year. The Round Table, Monday, November 25th at 9 a.m. It's the ultimate gathering of Nigeria's most influential voices, all bringing their sharpest takes on stories that matter. The Round Table. Don't miss this dramatic wrap-up on Nigeria Info FM, where 2024's biggest stories come to life. The Round Table. Let's talk. Who says you can't have it all with one play?
I got that defined boy. You have just won yourself.
Congratulations.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, Melitus. One player, don't talk to two players because you won 20K.
So now you won yourself 20,000 naira.
My name is Well Done.
Okay, well done. You want to tell you, well done. You won yourself 20,000 naira.
With 500 naira, you can play to win big. From 120,000 naira to 190,000 naira daily on Nigeria Info. Go to oneplay.ng and play with 500 naira. And in a few seconds, your ticket is in the draw. Or dial *347 *880 *3 hash. Win daily on Nigeria Info. 50,000 naira on Morning Crossfire. 60,000 naira on WhatsApp Lagos. 20,000 naira on Sunnyside. And 60,000 naira on Game On. So Lagos, what are you waiting for? The more you play, the better your chances of winning. Remember to dial *347 *880 *3 hash. Play responsibly. Not suitable for persons under the age of 18.
99.3 Nigeria Info.
Your number one station for talk. Let's talk. Let's talk.
I hate to keep GD here longer than an hour, so I would like to take your comment, your messages, and let me quickly go to telephone lines. Look, if you have just tuned in, welcome. We're Nigeria Info. You're on the sunny side. My name's Joyce, and our guest is GD Pratt, and you have come to know him as someone who kind of helps you comprehend this madness that pretty much you're confronted by as a Nigerian every day. And I think the reason why this whole conversation is necessary is also because the average Nigerian consumer is a consumer of petrol. So here we're trying to understand what's happening, and I would love for you to just go straight to your questions in order to help us manage time the best we can. Hello, Nigeria.
Hello.
Thank you for calling. What's your question? Afternoon, thank you. Welcome. What's your question?
I greet you, I guess.
Sure.
I want to ask you, this thing marketers are doing, Dangote, NPC, and Tinubu, all these things that are doing, this oil we're going to give us, is it not useless to us? All of them are doing Nigeria, cannibalistic vampire to Nigeria. This oil is useless to us. They are disturbing Nigerians. Let them go and sit down. Tell us that, let them go and sit down. Nigerians are suffering. I cannot pump my tire. I cannot buy fuel. I'm coming back my own daughter.
All right.
People I know, all of them are doing like Washoko people. I swear, this radio.
It's all right. Thank you. Thank you so much for calling. I just told you that. Hello, welcome to the show. Turn off the volume of your radio set. Good afternoon. Turn off the volume of your radio set, please. Thank you so much for calling.
Yeah, I'm off the radio. I just joined the conversation. But the bit that I had, I want to ask some questions from Mr. Pratt because I believe he's a practitioner in the oil and gas.
Yes,
sector.
go ahead.
Yeah, can he just clarify that apart from Dangote refineries, there is a standard laboratory elsewhere by any organization that can test all the imports of oil into the country?
All right, got it. Thank you. Thank you very much. You have an answer to that?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So I don't know if it's advertising or not, but there's something called SGS. So SGS is a body that has been in Nigeria for God knows how many years. I mean, there's no quality parameter that you want to test that the SGS laboratory in Apapa can't do.
Okay.
So there are quite a few.
It would mean that when Dangote makes a claim that his quality is probably the highest we would ever experience or come by, that would be a solid argument?
I mean, solid argument based on sampling, yes.
Okay.
So every time you draw a sample, if you took the sample from Dangote Refinery and took it to SGS, the parameters shouldn't be
Are you persuaded by that?
Yeah, if the test results are.
You're saying if, as though you're not sure that the statement.
I don't know if it's been done.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is that if you took a sample from Dangote Refinery based on his lab, which I don't have a problem with.
Okay.
If you took it to SGS laboratory and they run it using the same test standards, the results will be same.
All right.
That's what I'm saying.
So then you have answered the question. Thank you. Nigeria Info, real quick, your questions, please, because of time. Hello. Make it back. The sunny side, good afternoon to you. We're Nigeria Info. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, thank you. Good. Thank you so much for being here.
And thank you for bringing down IUC part on board. And good afternoon, Mr. Jide. Thanks. Joy, I think it's absolutely a shame. You can see that, just like Oboko said, this oil that we have as a gift from God is useless to us.
Do you have a question?
I just have the commentary. I listen all through. You know, I've been asking you of this IUC part. Even the day it came last, I asked you.
Okay, this was the guy who wanted answer to the
Yes,
IUC.
it was me that always put it on Sheriff Show, Kofi Show, everybody's show. I threw it on the board. And thank God you brought it. You promised to bring it. I appreciate you for that. And you see, it's a shame that at this age of our life, Mr. Jide, we cannot go into the and tap oil by ourselves. When Angola, I'm sure Mr. Jide is aware, Angola is coming up with the refinery next year. And they have a national oil company. And it's a shame when I heard Mr. Jide saying because of financial capacity and know-how capacity, at this age of our life, as Nigerians as we are, we cannot tap crude that God gave us ourselves and make it useful for ourselves. Then it's useless. It's useless. There's no point we do claiming that we are big giant or whatever giant we call ourselves. And if we are taking 60% of the agreement, Mr. Jide, where in our life as citizens of this country, that 60% is reflecting? Where? Nowhere in our life as citizens of this country, that 60% is reflecting. I don't blame them anyway, because I've never supported removal of something, because I know that that's the only thing that as a citizen we are benefiting. But some of us that time were saying, remove it. They have removed it now. Our eyes clear.
Thank you.
It's very sad. What I heard from Mr. Jide to again makes me very sad more.
Oh. I didn't mean to offend you, but thank you. Hello, Nigeria Info. If you have a question real quick, you want to get to it.
Hello, Joyce.
Thank you. Turn off the volume of your radio set, please.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Good. What's your question?
Yes, my question is this, as big as all the rich people that have ruled Nigeria, both Jonathan, who from the Niger Delta, with all the money paid from his day one to the last day he stay in office, can't he use that money to invest for the petroleum and establish his own private? Hello.
Go ahead. By the way, there's another question here, Jide. Please, what is the capacity of the company that is carrying out the turnaround maintenance at their refinery, Warri, precisely?
I'm not so sure. I don't know the name offhand.
Okay.
So my assumption is that they would have passed some technical tests to be able to. I just hope they have.
Yeah.
Most times what you find out is that someone who builds the refinery actually has a service management contract. I don't know.
Yeah, the details. Okay.
I don't know.
All right. Hello, Nigeria Info. Real quick. You have a question? Get to it.
Yeah, quick one, George. Good afternoon. This is Chris. Mr. Frank, you mentioned Modular Refinery. I'm from Delta State, Ndukwa East to be precise. 2-3 years ago, there's a Modular Refinery at Ndukwa West. During the Sandra show, I called. How come NNPC refused to give them crude? And Sandra did a finding, get back to me, and said the NNPC said they did not get approval from wherever they used to get approval to give them crude to refine. If they refine in that Ndukwa West there, it will serve some state like Abia, Edo, Bayelsa, Anambra.
So
then you go up to rivers. You go to Tuacha here, there's a refinery. You have Orient Refinery. There's one at Egbema. All these people making excuses for Dangote. I don't understand.
All right, so let him attempt to answer the question.
Yes,
is that a question you're asking?
Refinery. For this Dangote man, this winner takes it all. If we can avoid this fuel, like somebody said yesterday, say they will crash the price of fuel. I'm waiting for that guy's set of market.
Okay, all right. I want to appreciate, you want to respond to that real quick?
I'm just wondering, ideally, once you apply for a modular refining license and you've been granted, you've been tested, and you've been certified, then ideally, don't forget that we had an issue with crude not going to any refineries at the first place. And that was because we were not lifting enough. So ideally, if any of those refineries he's called is on that list, The first stage was they wanted to give Dangote first, and then government had said the second stage was that all modular refineries that were certified will get crude. That much I know the government has said. Whether it started in practicality, I don't know.
But the government did promise that
the government did promise that they would start with the Dangote refinery, and then, because modular refineries have been talking about this for a while, the greatest challenge is feedstock.
Okay.
They never have crude. So most times you find that they have to go and find crude, import crude into Nigeria, refine it, and then sell the product.
You know, there was a time that the Navy actually just gave us some, I don't know what it was. We must have done that day to the stars for the Navy to come out and tell us that there are ships that take our crude out of this country. What do you have any additional gist around that story?
I mean, I'm just happy that it's come to a stage where we hear less of those things.
We hear less?
We hear less of it because it was really, really rampant at the time. And I could not understand how the size of those vessels would come into Nigerian water and then go back out. If you notice, after that, we saw the Navy burning some vessels. It became rampant. Then after that, it reduced. So it meant that people are cutting pipelines at a certain place, pumping. Because to load onto a vessel, we're not talking about jerry cans here. We're not talking about buckets. It means that pressure on that pipe that is cut has some form of suction pump to pump it onto a vessel and then leave the Nigerian waters. I mean, come on.
These could have been state actors, actually.
It probably would have been, because there's no other way. Every ship has a beacon. So it means that if you switch on your beacon, when you come into anywhere, if you go to apps as simple as Find My Ship and you're looking for a certain ship, you'll
know where it is.
You'll know where it is. So, I mean, I hope they've put it to bed, because things like that should not even be happening.
Yeah, so I'll take two more, please, just for what time's worth. We can let our guests go. Hello, Nigeria Info. You're on the sunny side.
Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Sam.
Welcome, Sam.
Greeting to our guests. My question: for over 15 years, we have been producing oil, so we cannot get the expertise in Nigeria to the extent that we still have to go through joint venture. What are we doing? We have graduates, petroleum graduates all over the place. That is number one. What is our benefit from the 60% to 60%? Where is it going to? We are getting 60% from the crude, produced. Is it going to education? Is it going to mining? Is it going to our roads? Our roads are bad. Education are bad. Hospitals are bad. Everything are bad. Where is that money going to? And nobody is probing anybody. People taking money away, crude away. The crude that have been taken away, away all this while. The money that have been used, collected up front in form of loan. Where is the money? Whose pocket is this money? Why have they not brought this? Why have they not taken arrest somebody that, the money that you borrowed, why do you use the money for? 5 years, 10 years, you sell crude in advance, and then the money is not reflected in Nigeria economy. What are we doing? We are just playing.
Thank you.
Until this Nigeria bomb, before everybody will stand up.
I want to appreciate your commentary. Thank you. You've been my final caller with a question this afternoon. Turn off the volume of your radio set, please. I'll appreciate that. What's your name?
Thank you, Joy. Good afternoon. My name is Godwin, calling from Ikeja.
Right.
My own take is, hence we do not have policy to discipline those who commit crime. Forget about it. We'll continue to dance like this. We'll continue to swim on this particular path. I've been listening to you from the days of Radio Graffiti.
You have a question, please? What's your question,
My question is that why can't these people who are not doing what is supposed to be doing, why can't they be punished? Because if there's no consequences, there cannot be any way. Nobody can lead a pathway. If somebody is being used as an scapegoat, other people will begin to behave themselves.
All right, got
it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so Judy, I'll let you round off your thought.
So a few things, and let me try and be as brief as possible. A lot of times people ask the question, what do we do with our oil? What do we benefit? And I always answer by saying this. Every time we come out with a voter's card and we go and queue on a line, those are the answers that we need to begin to put out. Every election I vote, and everybody tells me, a lot of my friends say, you're wasting your time. I don't believe I'm wasting my time, because my one vote will go to who I believe is the best candidate. So I'll do myself and my children a favor by voting. It's enough of where we go out. There's a bag of rice here today. There's 6 packs of Indomies today. Those can only feed you for a day. So we need to take collective decisions in terms of going forward.
Yeah.
It's a shame that in terms of local content, and local content, NCDMA has tried to do quite a bit of this, but it's not enough. How we discovered oil in the 50s until now, we need joint venture agreements to extract them based on technology, based on
know-how.
It's a massive shame. Now, if you look at it, and sadly, I shouldn't be saying this on radio, but you find out that illegally, people blend what you call bonfire in the creeks. So it means that it's a rude way of refining oil. So the question everybody asks is, why don't we just license those people? Well, you can't license them because financing-wise, they don't have the funding. Okay. Nobody will back them with finance for an illegal operation. But what you need to be able to do is get some of those people and put them in a school and train these people and say, look, this is what you are going to do for a living. If you run foul of the law, you're going to jail. But when you train those minds, send them to refineries abroad, let them come back. You sort out the refining issue. But now we're talking about extraction. You have some of the brightest minds in oil and gas exploration that are Nigerian. So I do not believe that we can't do it, maybe with some minimal support, because this is what I always say, best practice, sadly, is not here. So if someone brings in best practice, then I will anchor on that person. But there must be a timeline. Is it 10 years? Is it 5 years? Where's that handshake? Where's that knowledge transfer? Where's that ability to do it again? But it all hinges on corporate governance. Until we have businesses in Nigeria that are run on the tenets of corporate governance, it's a long road ahead.
I'm so glad that you found a way to link this to elections and decisions the people make. And I think this is probably the most direct form of making the people, in some sense, particularly accountable for their own future. Because sometimes there's a I don't know how best to put it. It's as though we're removed from the consequences that we complain about, forgetting that we may have made a decision that brought about that issue that we now nag about, that has now made our lives maybe worse or harder than. Look, I'm really grateful every time you make it here. It's not just persuasive. It's hopeful, but we don't have time. Thank you, Jide.
Thank you very much, Joyce.
Really, I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, Jide Pratt. Every time you get to sit down with him, you want to believe, but I can also see why there isn't much to believe. I think in the next few minutes, we want to look at ex-Delta Governor Okowa in EFCC net over alleged 1.3 trillion derivative funds. Yeah, we'll be right back.
What's that station again?
Oh yeah, Jamo, come on. Here's one thing you need to know about yourself. So like here we talk.
Yep, bullseye. That's the one.
You're listening to 99.3 Nigeria Info's The Sunny Side. The Sunny Side. Welcome. My name's Joyce.
Lagos, so are you ready for the right path to study, live, or work abroad? Yeah. Or are you, looking for funds to finance your overseas plans? If yes, don't miss out on this exclusive opportunity. Reserve your seat for the premium Jackpot seminar with Uzo Oduduoba of Wazobia FM, so you can gain valuable insights, travel loans, learn proven strategies, or get insider tips. You can also network with industry leaders, one-on-one discussions with seasoned travel experts, and take the next step towards achieving your traveling goals. So the date is Saturday, November 16th, 2024. The time is 12 p.m. So please be punctual. And the venue is Creative Hub or Adeniro Ogunsoya Shopping Mall, Surulere, Lagos. The access fee is 10,000 naira and it only admits one person. For seat reservations or further inquiries, contact us on 080-2383-1303. So hurry up and secure your spot because the seats are already filling up fast. Lagos, I'm back with some exciting information. And you know, one interesting thing about debate competitions is that you don't just learn new ideas, you also get to meet brilliant minds. And that's what the I Bet It for secondary school debate competition brings to you. So November 11th marked the return of the ultimate battle of minds, and that is the I Bet It for secondary school debate competition. Now 32 of Lagos' sharpest young minds, all from different schools, will be stepping up to the podium to prove that they have what it takes to be crowned the season 8 champion. And this isn't just a debate, it's a battle of ideas, a clash of brilliance where only the strongest intellect will survive. So who will claim the glory this season? Well, I don't know, that's why you have to stay tuned. So get ready for season 8 of the I Bet It for secondary school debates competition that has started yesterday, November 11th at 4 p.m. The Tournament of Champion is back. For sponsorship opportunities, call or WhatsApp 080-5581-5844, and that is 080-5581-5844. Let the debate begin.
You are listening to Open Thought on the Sunny Side with Joyce. Let's talk.
Well, I think just about perfect to link what would appear to be. Well, this is not. It's a week old, but I think it's necessary information to sample public opinion with. And I'm not even sure how pleased or displeased you may find this, but last week some people found it particularly surprising. But I would say it's actually. I think what's staggering is the figure. But maybe if you're Nigerian one, but specifically if you're from the Delta, this would interest you. If you haven't heard it already, maybe now you know that, of course, the EFCC... Well, before we even go into the EFCC and OCOA, you remember what it's been between the EFCC and Yahaya Bello. So I would say don't get your hopes up. You're not sure how much will be revealed, but this much we know, that the past governor of Delta State, Ifeanyi Okowa, was arrested by the operatives of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission in Port Harcourt. This was shortly after he honored an invitation from officials of the agency. They say that they're investigating him over alleged allegations of corruption and fraud. It's also said that, you know that he was a former governor and former vice presidential candidate of the PDP 2023 general elections. He has been investigated over alleged diversion of the sum of 1.3 trillion from the 13% derivative fund belonging to the state. He was said to have committed the act between 2015 and 2023. So if you're in Delta and you're wondering where your money may have gone to, I guess the former governor would have some questions to answer. But whether you would get answers to your questions, God alone knows. What more by way of information can I furnish you? Well, it's said that the former governor is alleged to have failed to render accounts of the fund or funds, as well as another 40 billion naira he allegedly claimed to use to acquire shares in UTM Floating Liquefied Natural Gas, FLNG. Ooh, that's some serious money we're talking about. He was accused of buying shares worth 40 billion naira in one of the major banks in the country, representing 8% equity to float the offshore LNG, although the sources added that the funds may have been used for other purposes. So we're looking at two very interesting figures here. Looking at one, another 40 billion, which stands alone when we compare it to what is now an interesting unraveling of a tale where the former governor is accused of 1.3 trillion naira, 13% derivative fund belonging to the state. Well, if you have any reactions, particularly off of the conversation with Jide Pratt, and or maybe even because I think many times when we wonder where the money goes, like someone, I think how many of you now have said, well, with the share of oil that we get from these IOCs, where does the money go? What does the government, what do authorities do with the money? I'm not even sure in how many directions I can point you to, but at least this one happened 1 minute to go. On Nigeria Info, we're talking. It's Open Thought Tuesday. I'll pick a few commentaries on this one, and then we segue to our next interesting conversation on Nigeria Info. My name's Joyce. Well, you have my number, 0201-277-0993, 0201-465-7190. Hello.
Yeah, good afternoon, Joyce.
Thank you very much for calling. Tell us your name. Go ahead.
Jonathan is my name anyway. I will not ask where the money goes. I called just now. I said, where in our life is all this money reflecting our citizens? You see, it's not surprising anyway. It's not surprising that this is a case. This is now higher than that of Kogi, Yaya Bello. Yaya Bello is 86 billion. You see that this one has taken it further, 1 trillion. You see, and I remember vividly, Joyce, during the time we were talking about this salary for this union that they are fighting, what's it called, minimum wage.
Mm-hmm.
When the union were sticking their head for 250,000 naira, Nigerians were calling on this platform and saying, where will the governors get the money? Where will they get? I feel very sad sometimes. Even the removal of subsidies, people are calling and saying they should remove it. I think we should learn to understand some issues before we throw out our submissions. We were sticking the head for 250 people. Look at governor taking 1 trillion, taking 40 billion. So what are we saying? And if a union is not fighting for 250, some of us as citizens will not be calling, the asking, where do we expect to get the money?
Thank you.
And I don't know, this trend of somebody who spent 8 years in an office and scoop as much as 1 trillion, and then when he now comes out, you now tell us you have arrested him. At the end of the day, I can't pinpoint anybody apart from Dariye and the other governor. I can't pinpoint anybody that's been dealt with, just like the other caller said too. Who has been dealt with? Nobody. But they are punishing us, ordinary us, suffering us. All of them are going to pay one day. And I don't want to talk a very bad word.
I appreciate
you
calling.
They're going to pay.
Thank you.
Enjoy your afternoon.
The sunny side, where Nigeria Info is Open Thought Tuesday. Hello.
Yeah, Joyce, good afternoon.
Turn up the volume of your radio set.
Sorry, my sister. Onyemuwa from Delta State. Lagos State is owing, they say the highest state-owned foreign debt or something, followed by Delta. And this guy, 1.3 trillion. Joyce, from Agbo to Biaroko, my area, no road. And this guy has been there for 8 years. 1.3 trillion, Joyce. And you can't pay 70,000. Your neighboring state, Edo State, started paying 75,000. But the funny thing is that APC, FCC, they are selective. If not, they should have dealt with every one of them. Even the other one that left, Uduanga, that left before this Refinery. But no, at the end you will hear pre-bargaining, or which grammar they always use. Pre-bargaining. You will return some paradise, then the other ones you go and flex with it. Delta State,
thank you.
Come to my area, nothing is happening. The revision fund, the ecological fund, everything, this guy. The other day was doing his father's burial, every one of them was there. They're praising him. Today, look at it. It's a shame that after being a governor for 8 years, you go to prison like Baba told them, OBJ.
Thank you.
Collect all this money back and pay that debt, please. EFCC, I'm begging you people, don't do any pre-bargaining with these guys. All his property, collect them. Thank you, Joyce.
Sure. Lagos, we're going to quickly go off on a break. We'll be right back. It's Open Thought Tuesday, and yes, you'll have an opportunity to speak on the matters afloat on Open Thought Tuesday on Nigeria Info.
You are listening to Open Thought on the sunny side with Joyce. Let's talk.
More conversation, more talk, more right after this. Lagos, get ready for a powerful year-end edition of The Round Table. This is where Nigeria's biggest radio voices, your favorite top OAPs on Nigeria Info FM, come together to dissect the most impactful stories of 2024.
The cost of electricity is going to make Nigerians more sick.
As much as the governor is saying that this is all about resource control.
You see, this public statement, of course, reflects the Nigerian mentality.
And so here we have a Nigeria where one day you speak about fuel price, the next day you must consider diesel price.
Most of these governors are just there. They have no idea.
From seismic economic shifts to explosive social movements, nothing is off the table.
For 5 weeks, it was one bad story or the other.
You're beginning to wonder what's happening with government agencies. Who is ensuring that the individuals...
Why would the minister walk out of you? The same minister will resume to the same office the following day.
Join us for an intense conversation, bold insights, and moments that define this unforgettable year. The Round Table. Monday, November 25th at 9 a.m. It's the ultimate gathering of Nigeria's most influential voices, all bringing their sharpest takes on stories that matter. The Round Table. Don't miss this dramatic wrap-up on Nigeria Info FM, where 2024's biggest stories come to life. The Round Table. Let's talk. Street Foods Nigeria returns with a power package season focused on nutrition, hygiene, promotion of tourism, and cultural heritage of Nigeria. Watch regular street food vendors transform to becoming extraordinary food ambassadors that brings foreign direct investments under the mentorship of celebrity judges like Chef T, Diary of a Kitchen Lover, Okpayemi Famakin Kunleremi, the host with the most, Eniolua, and other guest judges. Catch Street Foods Nigeria on YouTube at Foodbay TV. Turn on your notification to be the first to see it. Street Foods Nigeria Season 5 is proudly brought to you by Foodbay TV in collaboration with Lagos State Ministry of Youth and Social Development. Championed by Golden Penny. Sponsored by Calypso. Refreshed by Maltina and Tiger Beer. Supported by Hospitality Business School, Prism Healthcare, and Palladium Farms.
My back, yo, my body, my shoulder, with Salon Pass. When the back is on the pain, you with Salon Pass. When the body on the trouble, you
Salon Pass Pain Relief Patch provides effective relief for stubborn pains such as back pain, shoulder pain, knee pain, and leg pain. Salon Pass is distributed by Drugstock and available in pharmacies and stores near you. Try Salon Pass today. Salon Pass, just patch it. If symptoms persist after 3 days, please consult your doctor.
We're back.
We're back.
We're back.
We're back.
We are back.
We're back on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
Hello, Lagos. November 11th marked the return of the ultimate battle of minds, and that is the I Bet It for secondary school debate competition. Now, this competition kicked off yesterday, Monday at 4 p.m. And trust me, I hope you did not miss that round. And, continuously, these students will go head to head, bringing their best arguments, sharpest wit, and unstoppable determination. 32 of Lagos' sharpest young minds, all from different schools, will be coming up to the mic to prove that they have what it takes to be called the Season 8 champion. And this isn't just a debate. This is a battle of ideas, a clash of brilliance where only the strongest intellect will survive. So stay tuned. For sponsorship opportunities, call or WhatsApp 080-5581-5844. And that's 080-5581-5844. Let the debate begin.
Quality talk.
Intelligent conversations.
Always interesting.
So engaging.
Sometimes even mind-boggling.
Nigeria Info. Nigeria Info. Ask everyone. Anyone.
Start your day with confidence with the restoring power of Vaseline Petroleum Jelly. Keep moisture locked in all year round.
This is the most talked about talk station in Nigeria.
Ask my husband to do something. He doesn't want to. He has been a lazy man all his life.
Nigerians think raising children should just end up with domestic chores. We're not talking about cognitive abilities, travel to Mars and the sun and the moon. We're thinking of pounding yam and cooking soup.
99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
It's 2 o'clock.
The Headline news on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
Headlines this afternoon. Many people injured as explosion rocks Jos. Senator Okwebolo takes oath of office as governor of Edo State, while Vice President Kashim Shettima and other dignitaries grace inauguration of Monday Okwebolo as Edo State governor. Dangote Refinery sets to meet Petroleum Products Retail Outlet Owners Association of Nigeria on fuel supply deal, while Ipman and Dangote Refinery reach agreement for direct lifting of petrol and diesel. Nigeria National Petroleum Company Limited dismisses claims of sabotaging local refineries. Petroleum marketers seal agreement with Dangote. Lagos lawmakers pass votes of confidence on Speaker Obasa. Speaker of House of Reps Abbas rejects part-time legislators as part of ongoing political and constitutional reforms. Nigerian President Tinubu calls for an end to Israeli aggression in Gaza. Federal government plans single-digit taxes for Nigerians, while Executive Secretary, National Senior Secondary Education Commission, Ajayi, says 40% of 2022 NECO candidates may not access tertiary institutions. Jigawa Police Command confirms death of 10 people in accident that occurred at Yamfari village. And on the foreign scene, world's longest detained journalist in Eritrean prison without trial for 23 years wins rights prize. And Israeli forces strike Lebanon's Beirut and kill dozens of people across Gaza. Those are the headlines. This is still The Sunny Side with Joyce on 99.3 Nigeria Info. I am Yvonne Ochaifo. Stay here.
You are listening to Open Thought on The Sunny Side with Joyce. Let's talk.
Think I left my sweat.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.